Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be going over a very exciting keyboard that might just be replacing one of the keyboards I already own. And the contestant today is none other than the 8BitDo retro keyboard. And I got the N edition, which is paying homage to the NES system. And without further ado, let's get this started. Okay, so let's start with the unboxing of the 8BitDo. Okay, so we have the keyboard over here that we'll look at in a bit. Let's see what goodies we get. So we get some manuals, we get some retro stickers over here that you can put on your buttons of keyboard, and we have a manual. And what's interesting here is that we get these super buttons, so they're already pre-connected to the aux cable. And what these buttons are is that you can map them to whatever you want in terms of keys and just use them as is. They're very fun to play around with. And you also get your cable for your keyboard. It's a USB-A to C connector, and it's not the best quality, I would say. It's a very normal wire over here. And yeah, that's all. There's no spare parts, there is no spare switches, no tools. That's it. Now let's look into the keyboard itself, and this one is going to be a beauty. And if you look at that, so it looks great. It's built with CLICKY switches and it's a hot swappable board. So before going to the review, enjoy the sound test. I've tested this out with 4 switches. So in stock it comes with the Kailh Box White version 2s, a very high quality switch for what you're getting. I'm trying it with the Gateron Melodic too. And for CLICKY, I'm going with the HMX Sonja HC. And for a more talkish type of build, I'm going with the Keygeek Y2s. So hope you guys enjoy the sound test, and let's get to it. So I hope you guys enjoyed those sound tests. And the first thing I wanted to cover with this keyboard is the sound. So you won't be expecting enthusiast level sound like you do from even from like a Keychron, and it definitely can't compare with higher end boards like the Neo or etc. It's a very hollow sounding board as it is built from plastic. In terms of sound, I feel like the box whites were my favorite because the clickies really do hide the hollowness, and it does suit the retro vibes very well. I would say it sounds great. The second one I would say is still like the Gateron Melodics. I think it's also really nice. I like that it's quieter because the box whites can be quite loud, and in my opinion it did make it sound a bit more like a retro noisy keyboard because the clickiness is less overwhelming. But I didn't really like that the keycaps made the sound a bit thuddish. Like the melodics are more quiet, and hence the thudding of the keycaps hitting the plate sort of covers that sound. And the HMX Sonjas and the Keygeek Y2s, I think they sounded okay, especially the Keygeek Y2s. I definitely think you can build this board as like a talkie build, maybe not really a clacky build, but the whole point of this keyboard was to invoke some retro vibes, and probably the clickies are the best way to do it. Note that these keycaps are not cherry, they're MDA, so they're slightly taller than your typical cherry. So you can see here, I think they're slightly taller and they're slightly more curved. It's a spherical profile. It's not cylindrical like the cherries are. Overall, I think these are nice profiles to type on as well. Now, moving into the looks, the build of this keyboard, it is based on the NES, and I've not really played on an NES system before, but I have played on similar consoles back in the day. And you have like super classic games like Super Mario, Snow Bros, Tank 1990. Shout out, comment below if those games you have played. I managed to beat Snow Bros completely. It's a very retro inspired theme, obviously, and I just love the gray base with the red and black accents. And to be frank, it gives me a Wonder of You vibe, kind of like old school and very retro. In terms of the looks from all sides, from the front it looks absolutely amazing. I absolutely love this top strip over here. You have some buttons, very retro buttons over here, and you also have a very retro style display over here. It is stickers, so don't expect this to be like engraved or anything. It's just stickers, and I particularly like that your power button lights up when you're trying to connect it to something. This is like something I really like. In terms of the side profile, not sure if I can show you, but you can see the side profile. There's nothing really special. It's just a very plain looking side profile. It is two-tone, and on the back it's a very classic build for like a keyboard that's made of plastic. You do get your feet. What is interesting is that you don't get adjustable feet despite this being a plastic board. So I think that is a con in my eyes, because it would make sense why you couldn't do that for aluminium, but there shouldn't be a reason why you can't have adjustable feet for a plastic build. And what you're seeing here is this is the USB dongle, and it looks like a truck. It's so large, it's so big that I don't think this is very nice to look at, but it is magnetic, that's for one thing, so it will never drop out. And it's inspired by Super Mario. It has to be inspired by Super Mario because you see, you get like a very small display here. That this looks like the gold somewhere around the screen, Yeah, so this is Super Mario inspired. Okay, moving on to some of the functionalities of the board. I love the knobs over here. So this controls your Bluetooth wired and 2.4 gigahertz. So this does support 2.4 gigahertz. It's very nice. You have your own volume knob over here. I'm personally a fan of volume knobs if they are implemented tastefully. This is like super tasteful, and you're not limited. You can just spin this 360 continuously. And you also have some of the buttons. So like this is like your pairing button. This one is quite interesting because this is your quick mapping button. So if you notice on the board, you have these B and A keys over here, and all it's doing is that you can map certain keys to the B and A. So this pays homage to, you know, consoles which had a B and an A button. So I am connected wired, so it has lit up, and it's super simple. This is one of the favorite things I know of this keyboard is the quick mapping function. So you would just press this down for like 0.5 seconds, and when it lights up, just click any button like a B, and then I will just hold Ctrl C, and it has already locked that in. Similarly, I can do it again, 0.5 seconds, hold A and Ctrl V. I've already mapped both copy and paste on these two keys. So honestly, I think more boards should incorporate something like this, like a quick mapping feature, because otherwise you would have to meddle with, you know, QMK, VIA, softwares and things like that. This is super nice in my opinion. I'm not too sure what this does. It does say profile, but I have never like gotten it to really work. If I had to guess, it's supposed to control like some of the profiles that you can swap between for the B and A, but I haven't really gotten to work. So yeah. Okay, moving into some of the other things. So you do get a jack cable over here. So you have some of the aux cables that you can put. So this is like a super retro sort of vibe. It's important to note, and they specifically state that this does not work for headphones. So this is where your super buttons would go, for example, but you can't really put your headphones here and, you know, transfer music from your laptop to the keyboard to the headphone. It doesn't work that way. So aside from that, you know, let's move into like the internals. And if you can see here, it's very well closed up, and unfortunately the screws are hidden inside these feet. You can refer to other videos because I'm not going to tear this apart, because even if I do tear it apart and remove the screws, it is very difficult to pry this open, and I'm not going to ruin my keyboard for that. But from what you know, we can see here, this is a aluminum plate. Okay, this is an aluminum plate over here, and there is one layer of PCB foam, but based on what I've seen in other videos, there is no sort of case foam. So you just get your PCB foam but no case foam. So it can sound pretty hollow, as what you've heard in the sound test. Aside from that, this comes with a battery, of course. It can be operated wireless, but, and this is a very big but, it is on a 2000 milliamp battery. So for those of you who are not familiar, typically keyboards come with 4 to 8k milliamperes, and this is 2k. So honestly, this battery life will be 2 to 4 times less than other comparisons. And if you're a wireless guy, this might be a deal breaker for you. And aside of that, it's built entirely out of plastic. Based on the website, it weighs about 1050 grams, which is pretty okay, I would say, in terms of weight. And I do think that the quality is good, but it's not the best, because I do hear some rattling. So if you can just hear this. So I think that rattle comes from this over here, but the switches are quite tight. So it's something internally that is sort of moving around, which I don't know. And you know, that's probably points deducted for this very nice keyboard otherwise. Probably the last thing or two things of note for this keyboard is that it's not QMK VR compatible, but it does support its own software. So if you wanted to remap some of the keys here, you would just go to their 8BitDo website and just install like a software to remap it. The last thing is that this does not support RGB. So there's nothing much to say. You don't get any RGB. It is north facing, okay? You can just see that. So it is north facing, and it supports 5-pin, and you can see there's no LEDs. Yeah, so I think that's all for the features. So I'll be talking about customizability right now. And one thing about this keyboard is that it has very bad customizability. You don't really have much things that you can change or you can tweak about, because it's nearly impossible to break this case apart, and it doesn't support like different plates. You don't get the choice of plates, you don't get the choice of dampening kit. It's fixed top mount, you don't get to change that, so there's not a lot of customizability here. But I think that doesn't matter, because these come with Kailh Box White V2s, and they're a very, very nice clicky switch. I will be keeping the Kailh Box White V2 because Kailh has a very, very good selection of clickies. One thing in its favor though is that it comes with a lot of very, very nice and very crazy colorways. So I have the N model over here, but you also have like the Famicom version. You have a version that pays homage to the classic IBM keyboard. You even have like a green Xbox colorway, and you even have like a blackish blue mecha, I think it's Evangelion themed keyboard. So in terms of colorways, there's so much colorways that you can pick. So I'm going to go through these buttons, super buttons right now, and basically similar to the B and A keys here, you have B and A's as like play buttons that you can actually connect to your keyboard. And I've seen people use this to play like casual retro games, for example, or some people have used it more creatively, like they've used it for like foot switches, like you place it near your foot and you just toggle between them. Some people have used it for screen recording purposes, where one is a screen record, the other one is a screen stop, and that's really nice. I think this is a really, really nice add-on, and it's also very, very firm. So the back of it is made of some sort of like rubber, so it doesn't easily slip on the table. So yeah, you can just see this, like it's not moving anything. So yeah, and it is its own hot swappable switch, but it's not using the Gateron, not the Gateron, but the Kailh Box White. It's another switch that I don't know the name of, but yeah, you can switch them out as well, and it's super fun. It's super fun. Okay, in terms of value, I think this is like a crazy insane value. I got this for 300 ringgit, as I mentioned, and 300 ringgit for everything is insane value, because it comes with the super buttons. The Kailh switch alone costs about 1 ringgit 50 cents here in Malaysia. So if you multiply that by 80, it should be around 120 to 130-ish ringgit. And that would mean that the remainder, which is around 270 ringgit or 280, would just be the everything else, like the build, the keycaps, the electronics, the battery. I think it's a super nice deal. I think some sites typically have it at 100 USD. I got it for 75 USD if you convert it to from Malaysian ringgit. Even then, I think it's a very good price. It's a hot swappable board, so there's no worry about that. And I really, really love this board. So what are my final thoughts? The good. This is insane value, I would say. It has such a nice retro look. I wouldn't get this if you are trying to optimize for sound. It's not trying to do that. What it does do good is that for a very budget price, you get a very retro looking board, and it honestly will look great if you had like a keyboard collection of sorts. And I think it fits well with the CLICKY theme. This will be my CLICKY board from now on. You also get the additional super buttons, which are really fun to play around. The bed, as I mentioned, it doesn't have the greatest sound. I would just call it mediocre or slightly below average. It's very hollow and it's plastic, so there's not much optimization you can do there unless you tear apart the build and go in and put foam. And that's another con about it, because it's not really customizable. You can't open the back, and surprisingly there's no adjustable feet. I don't understand why there isn't. I feel like that was a missed opportunity, because this angle, you might not even like it. I'm super happy with this board, even considering all its flaws. It looks fantastic. I've said that like so many times in this video. It looks fantastic. You know, for clickies it doesn't really matter, because for boards that have clickies, the sound profile comes from the switches. It doesn't really come from the board as much as it does from like tactiles or linears. And I'm actually going to be selling my Gateron V5 Max for this, because although the V5 Max is the better, superior keyboard in terms of sound and functionality, but this 8BitDo is just so clean, so retro. It just looks so nice that it makes me want to, you know, type on it when I see it. And I think that's part of the hobby, right? If you're not happy, or like if something really makes you happy that you want to continuously type on, I think that's already a very good decision to make. And yeah, that's all for like my 8BitDo retro keyboard review. Hopefully, you know, you guys like this review. Let me know if you have any feedback, and until next time, peace.